CNBC TV 18 special. Our conversations at Davos 2024 continue. Last Davos in January of 2023, ChatGPT had its big breakout moment, and that was the talk of the town here in Davos. If you walk down the promenade this year, it's very visible that AI continues to occupy center stage. It is part of every conversation, it's part of every discussion. Every company is talking about what their AI strategy is going to be. So it's only appropriate that we get three voices to talk to us about the road ahead for AI. These are gentlemen who know what AI is doing to their businesses and other businesses as well. So please join me in welcoming on this CNBC TV 18 special, Jack Hidary, the CEO of SandboxAQ. Jack, it's a pleasure to have you here, and you've got with you your book that you're all set to launch, AI or Die.
That's right, AI or Die, because those are the stakes, Shireen, right now. AI is so critical right now that every business in every sector, financial services, energy, transport, all these different areas will be very deeply impacted by AI.
Well, Jeff, it's great to have you back. Jeff, of course, from Coursera, and always with us here in Davos and back in India. And Jeff, we've had an AI version of you speaking to us in Hindi and Tamil. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'll do it live. No, we were really excited. Last week I was in Delhi. We just announced the day after National Hindi Day that 4,000 courses are now translated into Hindi. And we're using generative AI for coaching, for course building, for translation. And we just launched the Generative AI Academy, and I just launched an online course to teach CEOs how to set strategy, because it is something that is very important, but very challenging to navigate your path.
And we are going to get our viewers a sneak peek courtesy Jack and Jeff. Jack talking about what his book says, and Jeff talking about what his Coursera playbook is going to tell us. Anirudha, thanks very much for joining us. You know, Recykel also trying to use the power of AI to try and see how you can disrupt the circular economy and the recycle business. Take me through that.
Sure. So at Recykel, you know, one of the major problems we understood was that the fragmentation on the supply side for waste. You know, it's a localized, inefficient supply side. And with the use of AI, we now understand that you can build such phenomenal layers of supply side integrity. And starting with, looking at the rag picker, facial recognition, instant translation, and then through our marketplace, really trying to see how we can build predictive models for, pricing, volume assessments, quality. And that just builds on, computer vision for sorting, segregation. AI is deeply rooted, and we're very excited to see how that unfolds.
Yes, we're all waiting to see how this story unfolds. But Jack, let's address the big developments that we've seen in the AI world, specifically with OpenAI. And I guess the events of the last few months do beg the question on whether the corporate structure that OpenAI has will lead to the kind of trouble that they saw. Now, you decided to go independent. You spun yourself off of Google. What was the rationale behind that?
Well, it's very important to have a great governance structure and to make sure also you have independence. Right now, for example, there's very positive aspects of AI, but also deep threats of AI. And a corporate structure has to make sure that you handle both of those. In our case, we were incubated inside of Alphabet. We're now independent. We have an independent structure with Eric Schmidt as our chairman, myself as CEO. We raised $500 million in order to really scale AI. But again, both on offensive, that is using AI for competitive advantage for our customers in banking, in many other areas, but also defensively. People talk about the risk of AI, Shireen, in terms of the future, terminators and things like that. We're more concerned about the threat today of AI being used by cyber hackers. That's something that we must address right now. AI-driven ransomware is with us today. This is not a tomorrow issue. So that's something that's very important right now to make sure that all the clouds, and now that we're independent, we now are on Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. And so we handle all the cloud issues in addition to on-prem.
Jeff, let's address this issue, what we need to focus on today, both from a risk perspective as well as an opportunity perspective. And give us a sneak peek into what the playbook that you're doing for Coursera reveals.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a report that just came out from BCG on January 11th. It found that 89% of CEOs put generative AI in the top 3 of their top priorities. But 66% of them are dissatisfied with the rate of progress. And what they say the issue is number one, their teams are not getting trained. They don't know how to use this properly. Number two, they haven't really created a strategy to figure out how AI might create value for the company in terms of customer value and in terms of productivity. And then the third one is the risks and navigating the risks, ethical risks, data security risks, legal and regulatory landscape, which is shifting. So the course basically just goes through that. It says, not only how does it work, but how is it used? And what does that mean for training? What does that mean for transportation and setting your corporate strategy? And what does that mean for navigating the risks? In F1, they say, if you want to drive fast, you have to have good brakes. It's a balance between going quickly but going safely by understanding the landscape and having the right guardrails in place.
You know, speaking about understanding the landscape, Anirudha, what's been the experience so far? I mean, early days yet, but how do you see this scaling up?
Just in terms of the supply chain, for example, circular economy, in India is a big theme under the current government. Regulation is a very big tailwind. And what that does is it enables companies like Unilever, Coke, Pepsi to look at traceability with a fresh pair of lens year after year. So the value that AI brings today, I mean, we started off with material flows and just starting to look at data build-up today. But those initial layers of data are, critical in sort of building the AI layers for tomorrow. And as I mentioned, supply side integrity, really providing compliance that can be, automated are all, on the road ahead.
Speaking about the road ahead, Jack, and you wanted to make a point on that as well. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to build on what Jeff was saying, and Anirudha, in terms of the training side. It's also very important, as Jeff is doing at Coursera and others are doing, to use AI itself in the process of upskilling your workforce. Every workforce now must be upskilled. And I commend people to go to these kinds of courses to do so because, for example, Wednesday here at Davos, we're launching with many, many partners a special kind of AI-based training for healthcare to get more women into healthcare jobs, to become doctors, to become nurses, particularly in the developing countries. And it's AI-driven. In other words, each one is personalized to that individual. It's not a generic course. And so what Coursera and others are doing is critical in this upskilling that we need in the workforce overall.
In the context of upskilling, which is what we're talking about, let's talk about jobs, because there is, of course, the big fear that what is AI going to do? Is it going to displace people? Is it going to do away with jobs? And then there's the other side, that it's actually going to end up creating a lot more jobs. But do you have the requisite skills to be able to deliver on the promise that those jobs offer? How do you read this? And do you believe that there is a role that a public-private partnership can play on this front?
It's critical that we look to the creation of jobs. And I think AI, and we believe very deeply, AI will create many jobs. One thing that's critical, Shireen, to doing so is to go beyond just LLMs, beyond just ChatGPT. It's a wonderful tool. It's good for creating text, for summarizing, many, many different applications. But there's many more tools of AI than beyond just GPT. One example is AI simulation. This is now being used by biopharma companies, by biotech companies, by chemical companies, material science companies, to actually create novel molecules for diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and others. This creates jobs because instead of taking 15 years and billions of dollars to create one molecule, we can now do it in a matter of 2 or 3 years. That's a productivity gain that actually creates whole new markets. That will be critical, in addition, of course, to the upskilling as well.
Jeff, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, McKinsey just did a big study. I thought it was very interesting because so many people ask me, okay, if the world has been demanding software engineers and a lot of people have been going into those training programs, if a lot of that software engineering sort of task flow is going to get automated, will we need so many? McKinsey's analysis at least said, yes, we're definitely going to be automating a number of tasks. Software engineers are going to get far more productive. But despite the productivity, the demand for software engineers is still going to go up considerably. So they basically conclude, even though there'll be a lot of automation, the value of that resource will increase, labor demand will go up. Unlike customer operations, there are some lower value add jobs that deal with language, especially language and sound and video, that will probably be automated and won't really be replaced. And so it depends on the job and the tasks. But one of the things for sure is that there's going to be a lot of new opportunity. There'll be a lot of disruption. And I think that education might make the difference between whether this turns out to be more an opportunity than a threat.
So on that front, Jeff, what are companies like Coursera doing, on the upskilling front, on the issue of being able to create a workforce that is more prepared for an AI era?
Basically 5 things. The first is called Career Academy. This is to help people reskill and redeploy into new careers. Certain jobs that will just not be really viable career options anymore. The second is Generative AI Academy, which is upskilling so that Everyone can learn the basic fluency, the leaders can learn how to guide their companies, and then each function leader can figure out what it means for the function. On the learning side, we have language translation, which we talked about a bit. We have Coach, which is personalized tutoring, like what Jack is talking about. We have Course Builder that helps instructors more quickly create high-quality content suitable for their audience.
Jack, one of the issues that I want to talk about, and I think this is something that is being discussed and debated across regulators today. What kind of regulation should we bring in place? Should we bring in regulation at all? What do you regulate? As a startup in this space, what's your thought on this?
It's very important that we engage with the governments, engage with the regulators. We have to make sure that they see all the different tool sets, not just LLMs, but many other tool sets as well.
Is that too much focus? I mean, are we LLM obsessed today? Is there nothing beyond LLM and AI?
Well, one of the critical tools that are coming right now, and it's going to have its ChatGPT moment, Shireen, this year. This is my prediction for you right now, sitting in Davos, January 2024.
Okay, listen carefully.
We can check in 2025 whether it's happening true. Embodied AI, which is another way of saying robotics, is going to have its ChatGPT moment this year, 2024. In other words, you're going to see demos, real-life demos of humanoid robots, not wheeled robots, not one-arm robots. I'm talking about 2 legs and 2 arms doing critical functions for warehouses, for assembly, in hospitals. This will be one of the critical applications. Across the world.
In 2024.
We're going to see the demonstrations to have the ChatGPT moment. Just like the ChatGPT moment initially was, a demonstration, but then it started climbing. There are more than 25 well-funded venture-backed robotics companies that are now creating humanoid robots. LLMs are now inside them. Machine vision that has been rapidly increasing in power for the last 20 years is now inside them. Increased battery packs inside them. So there's 7 different technologies, Shireen, that have come together for this moment in 2024 to have its ChatGPT moment for humanoid robotics. It's going to be rolled out in prototype this year, and next year, 2025, 2026, 27, you're going to see real application of robotics. Now, that raises critical regulatory and policy questions around labor. We must get ahead of that curve. We must engage with the millions of people who may be displaced by these robots, and we have to grow the economy by creating more manufacturing capability around the world where we couldn't before. That's what robots allow, and also in healthcare. That's one of the critical applications of the new robots.
So, even in sectors like healthcare, and I'll get all 3 of you to comment on that, we have shortages. We have shortages for skilled labor across different sectors. But when you talk about humanoid robots, for instance, the fear of what it could potentially do to current existing jobs, forget jobs of the future, what it could do to existing jobs, how do you allay those concerns? I mean, these are questions that policymakers, regulators, government, political leaders are going to have to weigh.
That's exactly right. We need to start using humanoid robots in jobs that humans don't want to have and can have. Example would be in a hospital. Right now, MRSA, one of the diseases that antibiotics don't help with, kills 100,000 people in the US, hundreds of thousands of people in Europe, and hundreds of thousands more in India, as an example. One way to stop that is to disinfect the room with a UV light. Well, humans cannot walk into a room with a big UV light. It's dangerous to the human, but robots can. So this is a job for a robot that it does not replace a human. It's additive to human life, to actually save human lives, to have the robots going to hospitals between 2 patients and making sure that the room is disinfected. There are many applications like that where we can deploy robots and not humans and save human lives.
Anirudha, you listening very, very carefully. Does this, do you believe that this could potentially solve some of your challenges as well?
I think we're on the other side of the problem. I mean, if you look at Safai Mitras or collection, the collection side waste pickers, rag pickers in India, they're responsible for collecting waste from households. Today, they are collecting waste by hand. We've got AI-enabled computer vision that's helping them sorting, helping them with segregation, and that's a big development today. We are talking about single-hand robotics to help in that sorting process, and I think that's going to aid the existing stakeholder today. To me personally, I believe that the incomes of the Safai Mitras is going to go up because we're going to embed traceability. We're going to embed their identity and really put that onto a platform where brand owners can see that value of traceability and provide a higher price, a higher dollar for ethical sourcing. And therefore, probably replacing those jobs is not something I can see in the very near future.
Yeah. When we talk about responsible AI, we're talking about inclusive AI and the need for responsible and inclusive AI, Jeff. Again, these are complex issues, and I don't think anyone has this figured out yet or has the answers. But, as a CEO today, how are you addressing some of these complex challenges?
Yeah, there are many facets to it, and a lot is hard to anticipate. In my course, we have a whole section on risks. I have general risks, and then we have legal and regulatory, we have data security, data privacy, and then we have the ethics piece. And when we think about ethical AI and responsible AI, I think of it as risk management. So in traditional risk management, what risk practitioners do is they identify and mitigate risks that could harm the company. When I think about AI, a lot of what that's about is risk management for society. It's looking beyond just the potential impact of something on the company to think more broadly about who in our society might be impacted by this. Where might this technology disproportionately negatively impact people, and where are the opportunities to actually narrow the gap between who gets impacted? And so we think that companies need to be basically looking at this as a risk management function, but more broadly than just their walls. And education, of course, is going to have a huge part of this.
Yeah.
If I could just build on what Jeff is saying on the risk management side, AI is the super tool, the dream tool, Shireen, for hackers. Hackers already obviously implementing ransomware, billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars paid in ransom in 2023 to ransomware different outfits. But you're going to see that increase by 4- or 5-fold this year and next year, because now they have AI as a tool. Adversarial hackers can use it to better do spear phishing, to send a letter to you, an email to you saying, Shireen, please click on this, and now it's going to be personalized to you. You're more likely to click on that. They can use AI to do pattern recognition on your network, to break into your network more easily, grab files, and hold them ransom. So we have to also think about the risk management in the context of AI as a super tool for hackers. And this is something that I think we need more policy discussion around as well.
In fact, the WEF has put out a report on cybersecurity risks and the vulnerabilities that exist within companies, and especially the small and medium enterprises, because the large companies still have the resources and the people to be able to deal with this. But, as far as Sandbox is concerned now, what does the year look like? I mean, what are clients telling you? Are clients willing to up their spending significantly? That's what Accenture seems to suggest at this point in time.
Well, I think what you can see happen is right now, the banks that use us, most of the major Western banks use us today for cybersecurity to protect them against these AI-driven ransomware and also the future-proofing of the quantum attacks as well. We're absolutely seeing an increase in cyber spending. There's no doubt about it. It is fundamental. It's existential. A bank depends on digital trust. And so does the government, so do many other companies. If your company depends on digital trust, you must be spending on cyber, and they're recognizing that, and they're doing that. But they're also spending on the opportunity side of AI as well, because AI can give you better risk management. Back to Jeff's point there. We saw some of the bank failures in 2023. Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic. What was the issue there? Is it that we're trying to evade the testing of the Federal Reserve? No, they actually passed the test. They passed the Monte Carlo simulation test. The issue is that our testing is no longer sufficient for today's complex economy. We need AI-driven, AI simulation-driven risk management, much more high-dimensional, much more complex, to actually look at the tail risk. And that's what bit us in 2023. That's why 2 of the major banks had to be saved before the entire banking economy went under. And so we have to really think about the opportunity side of using these tools to really create new opportunities in banking, in government, in telco, in energy. Clean energy, I think, is one of the areas that we're underspending in terms of AI. We can think about new battery chemistries, new solar energy chemistries to really take clean energy to the next step. We just had COP28 in the Emirates, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And one of the outcomes of that is that we must have more innovation, and I think specifically we should be using AI to create those new chemistries. Batteries today are hardly any better than 10 years ago. And we have to think about batteries that are 10x better in order to drive more EV adoption and more renewable energy storage. That, I think, is one of the big opportunities for 2024, 2025.
Jeff, when we last spoke here at Davos 2023, you told me how you were spending time with ChatGPT in the morning having a conversation. Yeah. So where are things at today?
Well, I've gone to a whole new level. In the course, there's a whole introductory piece that talks about what AI is, generative AI, and Andrew actually teaches that part of my course. And it's important to know how it works, but I then go, how is it used? There's a whole section where it's a hands-on lab called Using Generative AI as a Thought Partner. And it helps you figure out how to use context and how to use these large language models to generate, summarize, evaluate, compare, analyze, advise, integrate, communicate your thinking.
You're rapping now.
That's right. So there's that part, which is general. And then for the CEO, there are 12 labs that help you set your generative AI strategy by using generative AI as a strategic partner to give you input on the impact that generative AI might have on your business model.
MC Jeff in the house. So Anirudha, let me ask you, 2024, the priorities for you.
For us in 2024, it's really working with companies to accelerate our journey, in terms of traceability, for material flow. And we believe that AI is going to be the cornerstone for that.
Yes. Talking about creative, just building on the rapping. The great rapping.
Are you a jam now?
Yes. One of the big upsides of 2024 is going to be multimodal LLMs. So in other words, instead of just text, it's going to be text, image, and video. You're going to see the rise of saying a prompt into an AI and saying, I'd like to see a 3-minute video with this, this, and this, and bingo, you'll have a draft of that video, and then you can take it from there. So that creativity, most of us, we wish we could be Steven Spielberg and create a movie. We wish we could be a rapper or a musician. AI actually is now going to give billions of people the ability to create very interesting music, very interesting videos. Maybe not the same quality, as Taylor Swift, but very interesting, compelling, creative content. I think unleashing the creative aspect of humans, I think, is one of the ultimate properties of AI. And one way we like to think about AI, Shireen, is not so much artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence, augmenting humans. And I'm sure Jeff talks about that in his course as well. I think we can now extend ourselves into the creative areas, even those of us who maybe are business people and not necessarily writers and producers every day.
Well, yes, a lot more content is certainly something that we should look forward to. But, I wanted to end by talking a little bit about India. And Jeff, you spend a fair amount of your time now in India. Let's start by asking you, what do you believe has changed in the last few months? And, AI nation, the driver for the AI transformation, etc. I mean, all kinds of labels being attached to India. But what role do you believe India is likely to play in the AI story?
Well, I would start with the labor force and what role India will have in the global economy. I mean, many researchers are now saying that India will be the human capital labor source of the world. And then when you have these types of AI tools that can help augment somebody's thinking, the ability to step into a higher level of proficiency and productivity, albeit at often a lower cost, I think is going to make the talent pool in India very, very rich. The translation will break down some of the language barriers. And there was just a study that was done between BCG and Harvard where they gave consultants, first they had to perform a set of tasks without GPT and then with. They saw everybody's performance go up, but especially those who had less experience and less technical skills, they actually closed the gap against the higher performers. And so I think that when you look at India and also the innovation that's happening with the new education policy and the National Skills Qualification Framework, we've got a Bachelor's of Computer Science on Coursera from BITS Pilani. IIT Guwahati just put a Bachelor's with honors in AI and data science. This is available to anybody in the country, and we're seeing tremendous appetite to take online degrees and link those with pathways from professional certificates. So really innovative education policy in India.
Excellent. Jack?
Just to build on that, as you may know, I spent 5 years as senior advisor to the Tata Group, not only sitting in Bombay House, but also going across the entire country year after year. There's 95 companies in Tata, so it takes a while to even visit them, let alone engage. But I stood on the shores in Kerala and spoke to the St. Thomas fishermen when they were just getting WhatsApp. They were just getting their first smartphones. And you saw the change in commerce and the ability to go out to fish. And before they even came back, they sold all their fish by WhatsApp, by sending pictures of the fish.
Oh, it's a country that runs on WhatsApp.
Exactly. So now we're seeing the next wave of that. We're seeing the ability now to use AI in novel ways. And the fact that now there'll be 400 million people in the next 2 years in India who'll get a smartphone for the first time. Mukesh Ambani via Jio, many other services in India are now rolling out $12 to $15 smartphones. And this smartphone now, of course, enables many things, but one of those things is AI. AI-driven applications. The individual doesn't have to be an expert in AI to use these applications, but they'll be using them via these new smartphones that they're getting for the first time ever. And this means that AI will start to permeate all kinds of applications within India, be it in education. I'm also particularly interested in healthcare. When we look at the paucity of, for example, cancer oncologists, right, in India, and the lack of care when people are trying to get care for cancer, the ability to do that with an AI assist. The AI does not become the doctor, but assists the doctor in a remote telemedicine setting or a local setting in doing the diagnosis. For example, checking on the skin to see if a certain mole might be melanoma, as one example. Doing that kind of checking and assisting it, augmented intelligence again, using the smartphones as that diagnostic device to help the doctor. So I think healthcare is one of the areas I hope to see massive revolutionary impact in India across all settings. There's more than 600,000 villages, as we know, in India. We don't find the greatest healthcare available in those villages. Now with AI-driven apps on smartphones, I really hope we can bring that to the villages as well.
So I'll end by asking both Jeff and you, AI or die. That's the book which that's the book that's being launched here in Davos. But Jack, the one thing that CEOs who are looking at their AI strategy, if they haven't started on one yet, the one thing that they should be mindful of.
The one thing mindful is go deeper. What I hear from CEOs right now is, hey, Jack, we're doing AI. We're using it to create copy for our marketing website. Okay, I roll my eyes first, and then I say, Ms. CEO, Mr. CEO, with all due respect, that is not the kind of application of AI we're talking about. Yes, you should do that, but you need to go deep into your workflow, deep into your innovation. How do you make your next product? If you're an automotive maker, for example, don't just tell me about your website. Tell me about how you're using AI to lightweight the vehicle using new alloys of metal, using carbon fiber as an example, and then lightweight the vehicle so that on that same battery you can go twice the distance in range. That is an interesting application of AI. So the one message I have for CEO is, ask deeper questions of your team. Go beyond the shallow applications to the deeper fundamental applications that drive your core business.
Jeff?
It's pretty similar. CEOs have to own this. You cannot delegate this one. You need to understand what your strategy is for creating value and boosting productivity. You need to actually be the one who sponsors the transformation of your business and the education and training programs. You need to be the one who navigates through the risks and helps set those guardrails, not just the policies, but also the practices on ethical use. And in order to do that, you need to go hands-on and you need to learn this stuff. It's not something that you can outsource to somebody else.
Anirudha, you're not outsourcing this stuff, are you?
No, but I think for global CEOs, I think don't ignore India is going to be your biggest market. You know, we go by, you know this better than me, we go by the 30 by 30 by 30. 30% of our population is under 30. It's going to remain so for the next 30 years, and you're going to be a $30 trillion economy by 2030. And I think that being said, you know, our ability to adapt, use, you know, whether shallow or deep, is going to be extensive. You know, I know of Indians who have trained GPT for prepping for Davos, telling them who they are. They've got a 2-minute pitch. They've got a 5-minute pitch. They've got questions that GPT has thrown back at them.
Really?
But this is India.
Well, that is India, and this is AI. Jack, Jeff, and Anirudha, thank you so much for an absolutely fabulous conversation, helping, well, and predictions, not just conversation. We will check next year. And it's all on video. It's all on video. Well, thanks very much. We are going to take a break here, and the conversations will continue from Davos 2024. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment with more.